Hi, everybody. How do you hear me? How's the sound? It's been a while since I've been here. Good to be back. Got lots of fun things to talk about. Just want to make sure. Yeah, it's looking good. Looking good. Sounding okay. Sounding moist, delicious. It's not dry, is it? Uh, can't see Bill. Well, that's good. Sounds good. Um, how about you on YouTube? There he is. Okay, okay. Looks like we got something. Hey, looks like I'm on the other mic. Um, this should be the mic. Good now? I'm going to double check because it's always an adventure here. Yeah, it says Scarlet USB. That's who we're talking to. So hopefully, little low. Yeah, I think the volume is a little low. Hang on. Let me unload that. Hang on a second. Give her a little more oomph. Little more oomph. How's that? Is that better? Okay. Well, that's what we're going with. By golly, she could probably use a little more oomph. Hang on. How's that? How's that? How's that? How's that? How's oh here's the one. Hang on a second. How's that? How's that? How's that? How's that? Oh, up, careful now. Careful. All right, hey. Hi everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. Are the speakers made by Binford? No, they're made by Vogons. These are the Vogotech 9000s, and they're top quality. Top quality. Uh, here we are back, and when I say back, I mean back from 4 or 5 months living in the Soviet Union, um, and I am just so damn happy to be back. I got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Some good news too. In fact, nothing but good news tonight, I think. Yes, Dave Big Booty says I need to run the mic through the oscillation overthruster, and then it'll go signed, sealed, delivered. Did anybody catch that? So before we get started here, we have our friend Eric Blake here who recommended the title of the show, Blood Red: An Empire of Terror, and I actually pushed hard for that. Not going to happen. It's going to be an Empire of Terror, but I've got so much cool stuff to talk about, and I think I got one thing to show you too to back all this up. Hang on a second. Yeah, it looks like it. Let me just make sure first. Yes. Okay, so yeah, I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to be here for the first time in 4 or 5 months. Honestly, this is the first time I've been able to be here and not be thinking, my God, I've got to get on these scripts afterwards. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened, and talk to you a little bit about the shoot, which was amazing and incredible. And then we'll talk a little bit about going forward. And there's a couple of other things here too. So uh, I the final the final all eight episodes before I started doing any cutting came. I think I mentioned this last show. Came to 81,000 words, uh, and I cut it down to about 65, 64, something like that. So generally speaking, about 7,800 words per episode, um, with a slightly longer first one, slightly longer last one. Got there on Monday afternoon at about 3, and I'd already we had two sets. We had a set at the Gulag, and we had a set inside the one of the holding cells in the Lubyanka. And for production reasons, because of reasons, we did the Gulag set first, which means we shot episodes 7 and 8 first. Then we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I sent in 7 and 8 the night before I left. I did 1, 2, and 3 between Los Angeles and Nashville. I might have already sent in 1, but I did like 2, 3, and 4 between LA and Nashville, and 5 and 6 between between LA and Dallas, and then 5 and 6 between Dallas and Nashville. So as soon as we landed in Dallas, what we're still taxiing, I fired off the final scripts. So that alone was a real something. So we went out to, gave me an address to go to, and I thought we'd be shooting this in the Daily Wire main building, but we did not actually. We shot this in a studio that's about, I don't know, a 3 4 minute walk away from the main Daily Wire building. So it's a little disappointed not to get to see all the gang. However, uh, I was pleased with the fact that this was just a movie set, and we did we did this with some of the same executives that we've done the previous ones before. Dave is astonishing, and a bunch of other people I've worked with before, Jonathan. But the crew was pretty much brand new. I'd been working with them and talking with them over the course of the production. Hey, Marusha Dark is back, hooray! Um, so I had been working with them. I told you they had some crazy good set ideas. So I finally got to the actual set and walked in. We weren't going to shoot on Monday. We were going to start Tuesday morning. And I walked in, and and they showed me the Gulag set, and I about lost my mind. Now, they did let me run a 40-second clip for the members only. I sent out an email while I was there. I got one comment. I looked at YouTube. I think probably 300 people saw it. I told them I had to keep it, tight because no one else has seen this stuff. Uh, and when I looked at YouTube, there were two comments, and I said, please don't share this with anybody because it was nobody at Daily Wire had seen this stuff. And one of the comments was, I'm not sharing it with anybody because it's just awful. I can't follow it. I couldn't track it. It just, it's no way to follow. And I thought, oh boy, I should have said, let me send, I'm showing you a sample of the sets. So it was just 10 seconds of dialogue, 10 seconds of dialogue, 10 seconds of dialogue, and another 10 seconds of dialogue. So I sometimes forget that the people I'm talking to are not all in show business. In any event, it looked great. They have been. I met the new guys with this crew, and by the time I was done with them 5 days later, I was just crazy about them. Should be there, Steve, if you want to see it. And Phil Trick was there. Phil and Bobby were there for two full days. My friend Phil and Bobby were on their way back from Galveston on a battleship tour, as one is wont to do, and Phil was there for 2 whole days. It was great. So in any event, um, the first night I was there, I saw this thing, and they've got cotton on the ground for snow in the foreground. They've got practical posts with barbed wire. They've got a practical bench. They've got a couple of trees. Um, and then everything behind me is virtual. Uh, usually they do this in Unreal, because in Unreal they change it, on the fly. But these were pre-rendered in Blender. Um, I have told them I'd keep this under my hat, so I'm going to show you one still. I did a single frame grab, and this is, Stratosphere Studio, so it doesn't get seen by a whole lot of people. But these are the people that count, the ones who are watching live, obviously. So here is one lighting setup with 4 cameras of the Gulag set, and I had 4 different. They did 4 different lighting setups. There was bright daylight one, which is the one I used to introduce the show. They had a kind of a warmish sunset one. They had a real blue one, like a real cold overcast day. And then finally, they had a nighttime one. And that's the one I picked. I saved the final chapter of the final episode, the penultimate chapter is Colima, which is where some 800,000 people were worked to death. And so I said, let's just do that whole thing at the nighttime set, because it's supposed to be just so cold. All the rest of the stuff looked cold, but at nighttime it looked freezing. So I did a screen grab of this 40-second thing, and this is what 4 angles on the Gulag set looked like here. If I can just grab that baby. glass. I just make it a little. I'll embiggen it a little. So I saw this and I thought, man, I'm kind of dark, you know. I thought, wow, I thought there'd be more light there. But the second I saw it, I thought, wow, um, it looks like I'm sitting in front of this thing. The You can see on the upper left hand corner, you can see the searchlights. Those searchlights actually move, and they've got a the light that's coming from behind me is kind of down here, but they set it up so that the backlight uh, would just basically mostly be out, but then it would come on and then fade out like there was a practical light, um, right behind me. So I just zoom in a little bit on one of these guys here. If they'll let me, I guess maybe they won't. Try this. Hang on. I'm just so impressed with this. So yeah, and when you see it all in motion, of course the camera's in motion, constantly in motion. They've got 4 different cameras here, and when you see all of this stuff in motion, and I'm moving relative to the background. If you look at this shot here, this one, that stuff in the foreground, it looks maybe like smoke or something. That's actually a tree. They brought in a couple of smallish tree branches, and they put them in the foreground so that as the camera tracks, you get this get this tree coming in front of me. And so yeah, it is fantastic. And by the way, obviously, that has not been color balanced or corrected or anything. But very much like when I was doing work at PJTV, I did a couple hundred afterburners in front of standing in a green cube, but I was watching it live on the monitors, so I didn't really realize it. So all I'm doing is looking forward, and when I saw what they did, it was unbelievable. So first night there, like I said, I meet everybody, I see the set, and I haven't even gone to the hotel yet. I try on this outfit. I try on the one I did. So I did the gulag and the leather jacket with boots and stuff, and then I did the stuff inside the Lubyanka. I did in a black suit with a white open collar shirt and a blood red pocket square. So I got all the costumes in, and then just before I was ready to go, because I was pretty tired already, I went and sat in the control room there, and they were getting B-roll. And we had a third set, which we're calling the map room, which is like a study, and it's got all of these portraits on the walls, and there was a easel in the background, and they put this enormous portrait, real life portrait of like Dzerzhinsky on this easel, and these guys are picking up initial B-roll, and they were pushing in on this thing, and I'm saying to myself, this is a feature film. This is gorgeous, gorgeous, unbelievable how good it looked. Really, really incredible. And then they put Trotsky on, and then they do this pull out, and as they're pulling out, they start fading it out. Now, if you do that fade out in like in Premiere, the image just goes to dark. It's a digital fade out. But what they did was they took down all of the other lights in the room. There was a little tiny bit of warm light on the portrait, and the practical lights, the lamps in the background, were still on. And I thought, man, this is gonna be freaking gorgeous, gorgeous. So we did the 2 shows um, on the Gulag on Tuesday, and those were tough. I'll answer that for you for a second there, John. Um, the two shoots we did on Tuesday were tough because it was pretty warm in there, and I was wearing a t-shirt and a sweater and a leather jacket. So anytime was between takes, I was just taking that leather jacket off. It was much better the next 3 days. So John Pershing says, "What's B-roll?" So B-roll is an editing term, and basically B-roll is any sort of background extraneous stuff that you put in to use in the edit. So the A-roll stuff would be any angle of me talking or any angle of somebody I'm talking to, that would be A-roll. But if you're shooting a bowling alley, let's say, B-roll would be all the talent leaves, and B-roll would be the ball rolling down the aisle, the pins going, the ball coming out of the return thing, shot of the scoreboard. That's all B-roll. It's stuff that you just basically put in later. but the B-roll was mind-boggling. Um, and this one I was working hard for. So I was shooting 11, 12 hours a day. So on my feet for most of it. And on this one, um, they had me doing a lot of moving. So in the course of a given episode, we'll start on the either the Gulag or the Lubyanka basement, and then I'll say something, and then I'll walk off of that set, and I'll walk into the map room, and every episode they redressed the map room so that the portraits that were on the walls were the ones relevant to to the episode I was talking about. Every now and then I'd come into frame with a portrait and I'd say, not this guy. Now this guy is Pyotr Stolypin. He was Nicholas II's prime minister, and so I would just do those transitions like that, and it was amazing. So the first full day I did the episode 7, and then I did episode 8, which was an episode and a half, an episode and a third, probably. So at the end of the Tuesday, I'm just getting this jacket off me. My God! And I said, "Okay, that's a wrap." I said, "Yeah, fantastic." And the guy said, "Bill, you read 16,000 words today." Wow, that's actually pretty impressive. Um, that's a lot of prompter, and it's a terrible thing when you're running and you got a whole crew. A big crew. I mean, there must have been easily 15, 20 guys on the set and another two or three in the control room. We shot, I forget the number I want to say. I think we shot 8 or 9 terabytes. It's 8K, uh, 8K for the main camera, 6K for the other. So it's going out at 4K. Um, yeah. So that was amazing. Um, and then uh, the next day I did 16,000 words. Yeah, and 15 the next day. So I was doing a lot, and occasionally there'd be something about the. Sometimes you got words on a page that when you read them they're fine, but when you try and speak them out loud, there's usually when there's two words together, a little tricky. So I might take 3 or 4 shots at that, but generally speaking, I was just cranking through it. I would do 4 or 5 pages without a mistake, which is really pretty amazing. Uh, and at the end of the day, especially by the end of the second day, by the time it get to be 7 o'clock at night or something, and I've been standing all day, so they'll set up something and they got to change the memory cards, and I'm back here like this, and I'm just like oh, you see me? Yeah. Like, oh. I'm not whining or anything. I'm just tired. I was like, "You ready, Bill? Yep, yep. I'm good. Let's go." And I'd walk into frame there, and and they say, "Okay, and action," and pacow. Somehow, um, all of the I kept the energy up. Marusha Dark's got it right on the money as usual. It also helps that you wrote it so you know the lines and inflection already. Yes, it was written for me, and I wrote it for me, so it was great. So it's all of my rhythms, all of my idiosyncrasies. I bolded words where I wanted accents, but to do 4 or 5 pages of copy without stopping that's pretty impressive if I say so myself. So lots of people, especially by the end of the last day, because I did it for 4 days, so I just don't know how you do it. Because I'm an iron horse, man. That's how we do it. The I honest to God do not remember how much I talked about on the last show. I have a couple of Stratosphere lounges that have to go up. Prior to this, I didn't know I was leaving until I thought we're shooting it in LA until 5 days before I got on the plane. So everything was like, get this damn thing out the door. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned that 4 or 5 days before I got on the plane, uh, they I found this document that was a first person account of the Red Terror, and it's what was it, 40,000 words. I pulled 12, and then he ended up using 4, and it is like first person. Here's what happened to this guy. Here's his name. Here's her name, you know, and the stuff that these people did beggars belief. So the episode 6 is the Red Terror, and at the end of the final third of the Red Terror, I say, and I've got to close, and Stalin unleashed his Dobermans, blah blah blah, with their head full of crimson revenge or something like that, scarlet revenge. And then I paused and I said, and this is where I was going to end the episode, but my conscience won't let me do it, uh, because I just found a few days ago a document that is yeah, the volume is a little low. Let me try to jack that up a little bit. I don't want to get distortion or anything. Um, I got it juiced all the way. I bring the microphone a little closer. How's that? Hopefully that's okay. It still seems low though. Um, that's all the way up. Well, I'm not going to mess with it. Um, so, um, it was an astonishing experience. And finally, when we were done at the end of the day on Friday night, I thought, I still, I'm not exaggerating now. Maybe it's just by the time we got into the second day, the director would come up and say, "Okay, Bill, so this is the part where you say this and do that and stuff." And I thought maybe I said, "Peter, just tell me what to do. I'm just mush. Uh, I'm just reading whatever's there." Um, and the director was fantastic. The crew was amazing. Cinematography was amazing. Everything was amazing. Um, so um, so at the end of the day on Friday, I still thought we had an hour or two to go at least, because I'm not keeping track of it, right? I'm reading the entire script. We would do, I forget, I know for a certain fact it was 5 and 6 on Friday, where I read all of episode 5 and then all of episode 6. That's 16,000 words. And when they say you did 16,000 words today, the fact of the matter is, I did a significant amount, probably another 40% of that I did twice because we were in the map room. So anyway, it was just a tremendous experience. I've never worked with better guys, and to my delight, it turns out that this will be the first thing that Daily Wire has done with that LED wall that they used on Mandalorian. This will be the first thing that they've ever done with that, and I think we just blew it out of the park. Oh, I remember I was talking about that first person account of Red Terror, and I used a lot of quotes in this, a lot of quotes, because I didn't want people to think, well, that's his opinion. It's like, no, this is what Lenin said, this is what Trotsky said, this is what they said. And I found this guy's book, and I set up the book, and then I said, listen to Comrade Lenin, comrades. And then I had to have something, I had to some kind of device, some kind of a theatrical device to show that everything I was going to say after that were not my words. I mean, all of it for 12 minutes. And so on the script, I put lights go to red. And when the guys who are doing the sets and the digital sets and the background stuff, when they saw that, they said, "Oh, we can have fun with this." So I'm standing there in the basement of the Lubyanka, and and I've got this gigantic sliding steel door behind me, and um, and I said, "Let's go." And then the lights in the hallway go to red, the lights on me go to blood red, and I do the entire first person description of the Red Terror. I just do it in red light, and later on, I got a chance to really turn up the emotion. But for this one, I just wanted this to be read. I just wanted to read it flat. It's not my words. I wanted to read it flat. I wanted it to be very clinical, you know. Um, and it's just one example after another uh, of what these people did, what the communists did. I'll give you two examples that were. I'll give you three. Um, One of the things they did during the Red Terror, not the Great Terror, that came another 25, 15 years later. Um, when they first went out and started, this is all Lenin, by the way. It's all Lenin, all of it. Everything comes back to Lenin. That one of the things they used to do was a torture technique called bourgeois gloves, and they would take a person. This is not an archduke or anything. It's just a guy who was a doctor, maybe, or had a store or something. Just some guy who was, not a iron worker proletarian. And they would grab him by the shoulders and they'd take his hands and they'd put his hands into boiling water and they'd keep his hands in boiling water for 6 or 7 minutes. And then after that amount of time, they'd pull the hands back again and they'd take hooks and the skin on the hands would just peel off, just like the skin would just come off like gloves. So that was nice of them. Um, the second thing I remember is that they took some guys and dumped them into an iron smelter, and their bodies, what's left of their bodies, were found in the slag the next day. So when they pour out the slag, you've got this hunk of metal on the ground with arms and legs sticking out of it. That was nice of them. And then I mean, I've got 30 of these kind of things, but the other one that sticks with me is they used to take prisoners and put them in a real hot room in the middle of winter. Then they take them outside and they hose them down with fire hoses. It's 40, 50 degrees below zero. And they turn them into ice statues. Uh, that would, you just see 40 people just dead, frozen, covered in, you know, clear, shiny ice. And again and again and again, the people in the crew, because they're the only ones that have seen it, just said, I had no idea, had no idea. Um, yeah, that's why we're doing it. So it's a pretty damning, I wrote it as a case against communism, like a legal case. And 20 million people were killed by their own government. And I think I covered pretty much all of them. Um, Sad Wings Raging has got another, good for you. I'm going to repeat it because this is not widely known. You'd think it couldn't possibly be true, but it is true. That's how Orwell got it. Orwell wrote 1984, 1948, so he wrote it 10 years after the Great Terror ended. One of the things that they would do is they would take like a metal tube, like an aluminum, some kind of lightweight tube, strap it to your chest here, so it was extending out about that far. Then they'd put a rat in the tube and then they'd close this mesh in the back of the rat and then they'd heat the tube with like a blowtorch underneath. And the rat eats through your body to get out. And they said that would sometimes take a day before the person died. You think that can't possibly be true, but it is true. That's what they did. And it is simply the level of cruelty is unbelievable and the size of the crime is unimaginable, but there it is. So I felt this whole last 4 or 5 months, I felt this really strong sense of obligation, maybe responsibility, something like that, to get this story told, partially to shock Americans into, you see this, you're not going to be waving any hammer and sickle flags anymore. But I also did it for 20 million people who just vanished, just disappeared. They need, the world needs to know what happened to those people. Now, originally, the first episode was going to open on Google Earth, and we had discussed having a projector from the ceiling shining down on the floor, and I would walk around because the first third of the first episode it's called A Modern City, and it's like, here's the Lubyanka building, there's the toy store, 100 yards away, there's Lubyanka. 70,000 people killed in this building. Let's go down the street here. It's a 2/10 of a mile, it's a 5-minute walk. Just zoop, 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 zoop. See this building here? Completely nondescript, that little iron gate? Yep. Well, in the 1920s, around 2021, that little iron gate, these Black Marias would go in there, and in that tiny little courtyard, They shot 14,000 people to death. Oh, I know. Let's go back to Lubyanka. If you don't want to go north, let's go south. It's 1/10 of a mile, something like that. Just across the street, here's a building called it's got a tarp over it. It's called, they called it the Shooting House. 36,000 people, 36,800 people murdered in that building. They're turning it into a perfume factory, a perfume retail store. So, so Astronerd and everybody else says, when do we get to see this? They're expecting to have it done, I think, I think they said end of the summer for all of the episodes, all the posts done. What is good is the Cold War is coming out, and I got a chance to shoot. The marketing guys for Daily Wire came over and had me shoot. It was great. They had me shoot a couple of promos that they were embedding into the Apollo series that said, "Hey, if you like the Apollo series, you can watch the first episode of the Cold War free, blah blah blah, and then this will be coming out later." So I was covering all three of them. So the Cold War was originally supposed to release 2-3 weeks ago. They pushed it back because they didn't have their marketing fully in place. End of summer for the one I just shot. The Cold War, I think, is going to be out within the next couple of weeks because they were finished. Um, and I've gone through 7 of the 13 rough cuts and made a lot of notes about, now that's a T-34 and you really need a Walker Bulldog here or something like that. So so video for the Cold War. Yes, it was originally for the Cold War was a podcast audio only for 2-3 years. And then we shot the video for that back in October. And somebody pointed out at the beginning of the show, I was out for a snow day. Yeah, the internet in the studio went down for 5 days because of the rainstorm. And it's not like there were trees down, it was just a lot of rain. That's the kind of thing should have been fixed in an hour. It was gone for 5 freaking days. So a lot of members are saying, we haven't seen much of you, Bill. And I was like, I got a lot of catching up to do. One thing that was quite disappointing was real quick, Sad Wings Raging. Did I get Cannibal Island in the show? If you're talking about Sovietsky Islands, yes, I got that in the show. I don't know if it's the same. There were cannibalism everywhere because they just starved people. But I got everything that I could get in there. I got the White Sea Baltic Canal. 12,500 people killed working on that. That comes to 177 people per mile. That's the fatality rate. Thank you for the super chat there from Eric Trexler, which has just got a fist bumping chicken, which is, it's not a chicken. Maybe it's a chicken or a pear. In any event, it's nice to be fist bumped by an animated pear. Thank you for that super chat. And Adam Bowman with a really cool avatar. Is that an Axar or Axonar rather? $5. What kind of impact did Rush Limbaugh have on you? Well, that's kind of a media question. The honest fact is I didn't listen to him much, Adam, but he made everything that we do possible. We wouldn't be here without Rush Limbaugh. There would be no conservative media. There'd be no conservatives without Rush Limbaugh. I got a chance to meet him in person, and it's a little tough to talk to him at the time because I met him, I don't know, back in 2012, 13, something like that. And if you're a big fan, he's really quite deaf. I mean, he's practically completely deaf. And I was just hoping he knew who I was, And he said hi, and he shook my hand, and gave me autographed a copy of his book, Bill, keep up the amazing work, that kind of thing. That's really, really something. Epic guest for Super Chat for $10 says, everyone is either a son of Reagan or Rush baby. Yes. Yes. So that was nice, and I had a great time with Glenn Beck, actually. And Rush was kind of like, holy cow. Glenn was actually fun. I've talked about that before, and I'll bring that up maybe next time. So I got some other things to talk about here. So one of the things, moving on from the Empire of Terror thing, I got a bunch of good news while I was there. However, I got some bad news when I got there. I thought I'd have a chance to hang out with my buddy Jeremy Boring for a while. And what I found out was I landed, got to the studio at about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock on Monday. Jeremy had come by about an hour earlier and missed me. And the next day, the first day of shooting, Tuesday, he was off to England for a week or 10 days or something. So I got to see him Tuesday morning for about half an hour. That's all the time I needed. Um, the reason he and I'll get to that. Don't let me forget, Jr. About availability and all the rest of it. The reason he's in England is he's going. They were casting in England. Daily Wire is shooting a series. Jeremy's going to be there for 6 months, uh, shooting a series called Pendragon, um, and so they're doing you know, they're doing a Arthurian series that sounds like it's going to be really, really good. Um, but like I said, I have some good news. Here's the good news. So I had 20, 30 minutes with the guy at the incredible kitchen at the main Daily Wire building. Um, and I talked to him about a bunch of things, told him I was excited about this stuff. And then I said, hey, Jeremy, it's been a lot of work. He said, yeah, I've heard great things about it. I said, um, you know what I want to do next? He said, what? I said, I talked with Dallas about this, who's their feature entertainment guy. I said, I want to do a feature screenplay about Frank Luke as the beginning of the America's Forgotten Heroes things. Um, and Thank you, DW. I'd love to talk to you about that in a minute. Uh, and and thank you for the super chat there too, Jr. So I said I want to do Frank Luke as a feature film. He said, go for it. I said, all right. So that's really, really good news. Uh, I have an awful lot of fence mending to do with BillWhittle.com members. I've just been AWOL for 5 months, and especially the last 2 weeks. I mean, just 2 weeks. So we'll get to that in a minute. But unlike this thing, I already did the research on Frank Luke, and I could not find the it wasn't the first draft, it was the maximum draft. It was the finished draft before I cut it, and I think the aired version on the podcast, it was uh, audio only. I think the Frank Luke episode was somewhere around probably 9,000 words, but I knew I had more than that, and I couldn't find it. And then when I was editing on the airplane, finishing up cutting the scripts for Empire of Terror, I realized there were Frank Luke scripts there, and I found the largest file of Frank Luke, and it was 20,000 words, um, and and that is enough for me to basically do the screenplay on. I can dig in and get a couple of extra details, but the but I'm going to make short work of this. Now, when I say I'm going to make short work of it, I am not going to be doing anything like what I've done for the last 5 months again. This, you know, I haven't turned on my computer at home. Uh, I haven't touched Unreal. I haven't touched anything. I haven't touched a computer game in 2.5 months. So, um, but this I can do relatively quickly, and that's been approved. Um, and then, Henry Lumley, good old Henry, said that Marisha said that Tim Pool is giving out monthly grants for culture projects, and suggested you apply for one for the colonies or the Frank Luke movie. Well, thank you very much for that, Marisha. It's good to see you again. We all missed you. We were wondering where you were. I didn't see your name here for a while, and I'm glad to see you back. Do you know what kind of numbers he's talking about? Is it $200 or what? Now, I don't mean to be flip about it. It's obviously good news. So here's the thing about this. Daily Wire is they're just unbelievable. And so when he says go ahead and write that Frank Luke script, then that means that if the script is any good, then that will become a feature film, and I want to direct it. I'm going to put that in the contract, and I want to tell 5 of the 10K. 10K will help. Um, I want to tell 5 of these 7 America's Forgotten Heroes stories. I want to do Frank Luke, John Paul Jones. I want to do Booker T. Washington. I want to do the Doolittle Raid, and I want to do Taffy 3. And I kind of want to do them with, in fact, I definitely want to do them with the guys that I shot this on, because their live action stuff was crazy good, crazy good. So on that last night there, um, okay, Eric Blake, don't let me forget that. Uh, so um, so they're I'm not saying they're going to make the movie, but they're putting money into going ahead to make the movie. Um, and there's that. Now, as far, one thing I did not get to talk to him about, because this is a bit of a conversation. Um, I did not get to talk to him about a carve out yet, and um, and so I don't have an answer on that. I suspect there will be something like maybe a special membership deal or something like that. I'm just going to argue real hard for, look, can we just let our members see it for free? Once they see it on Daily Wire Plus, I think there's a good chance that a number of them will sign up. But I've had to make a lot of sacrifices for our members here in order to get these things done. And it's certainly true that you've paid me, but I couldn't have done it without the membership. So I'm going to wait till he gets back, um, and I'll have a conversation with him about that. Uh, I think I think that I think that it would be. I don't think he's opposed to the idea. I think it's a technical issue, right? Like how would members see it where it doesn't leak out? You know what I mean? They've got a paywall there, and they've got a right to protect that property. So we'll see. I'm going to do everything I can. If I can't get a carve out to watch it free, I'll see if I can get a 50% discount or whatever. Um, but I will do my best. Uh, but now we got Apollo 11 on film, shot the Cold War. I've given final notes on 7 of those episodes and another 8 to go. And then we've got the Empire of Terror in the can. And then we hopefully can go ahead and do that Frank Luke movie. And that will completely be live action. And one of the nice things about the Empire of Terror is this is the first time that Daily Wire has ever used the LED screen. And that would be how we would be part of how we do the Frank Luke thing. I'd take whoever we cast, we'd scan that actor's face, we'd get a good digital version of the actor's face, which we would use for the long shots and maybe medium shots of the air-to-air combat. We'd build a to scale SPAD cockpit, and then we put the video screen behind him. I told the guys, the tech guys, the guys that made this thing look so good, told them the whole story, and they were just riveted. They just said, "It's fantastic." I said, "Thank you." It is great, and then also there are, I know at least one, and there's probably more, flying full scale replicas of the SPAD, and having real airplanes. I mean, the CG is getting really good. Uh, I've talked about the use of CG on this show many times already, but the perfect use of CG is in Maverick, because a number of those shots are CG shots, but they're not shot like CG shot. The planes never come past the camera and put this little digital shake in there and that kind of nonsense like they did with Flyboys and all the rest of this stuff. So, and the god awful Midway and all the rest of it. So the story is incredible, and I've got a great hook. Did I talk with you guys? Because I may have actually figured this out since I spoke to you last. Here's the thing about about the Frank Luke story. This is a screenwriting issue. So this is the Stratosphere Studio. We talk about filmmaking here. Um, so here's my problem with the Frank Luke story, and as a screenwriter, it's an action movie about a fighter pilot, but he doesn't get into combat until probably page 50, maybe 40 or 50 out of 120. It's almost an hour. And that's not good enough. You got to start with combat. If you want to hook people on a fighter pilot movie, you got to start with the fighter pilot. That's got to be the first scene in the movie. So the entire drama about Frank Luke is what he did in 17 days. He ran up a kill score that has never been equaled. Rick Toppin never came close to these numbers, and there's so much going on in this story. Just such a great story. It's just so good and so layered. But I thought, how am I going to do this? So the climax of the story is his final mission, and he gets shot on his final mission, and I don't want to show that. So what I thought I would do is the last balloon that he flames on the day he was killed. He comes out around the back of a mountain, makes a pass on it, puts some holes into it. It's not igniting. He goes pretty much straight up on top of it, gets to the top of the turn, kicks the rudder, and then basically comes straight down on this thing. Air is just exploding, they're just black with anti-aircraft fire, and these things called flaming onions, these huge, enormous rounds that were coming up. And so he flames the thing, and then he dives out of the way, evades the anti-aircraft fire, and that's it. So I thought, okay, this is what I'll do. We'll open the movie with him makes the first pass on that final balloon of his career, pulls up. You're looking at him. The balloon is being winched down behind him with the LED wall. So he pulls up, kicks it over, and then he flies away. And what I was going to do is that would be the first thing you would see. You'd see him attack the balloon and then fly, and then he'd put his finger on the map and he'd look up and he'd said, that must be Mervaux. That's the name of the town where he was killed, right? And then we'd go to the opening of the movie, which is him playing football. He's an all-state linebacker, all-state running back. And so you get to see some 1914 football and leather helmets and all the adventures that happened to him. So 4 or 5 times we're gonna flash back to this flight, and every time we flash back to the flight, we see a little bit more of it. So the next time we see him come down on the thing, he flames the balloon, he goes in, he sees Merville, and this time he sees German troops on the ground, goes down and strafes them. We go back to the story, come back, so that by the time we get to the final mission, we have already seen the footage. So by the time we get to the end of the movie, all of a sudden we're saying, oh crap, now we're watching the stuff that he's been flashing back this whole time. Now we're watching this thing for real. So it's just like deja vu. And then that's just going to be great. So I'm looking forward to writing that. I think I can do that very quickly. So that's very, very good news too. And I'll get to questions and stuff and all that jazz. I guess this is a media question. JT, at Odin's Men, who was in his YouTube channel, got completely demonetized across all of his channels. They never told him why. They never tell anybody why. And so he's been doing a lot of stuff on Rumble. Those of you, this might be inside baseball for a lot of people, but one of the people that he talks about a lot is it's one of these trans activists named Jeffrey Marsh, and Jeffrey is the creepiest guy you've ever seen. If you brought him in to audition for the Joker, you'd never work in this business again, because people would say it's just too much on the nose. It's insane. So this Muslim woman made fun of Jeffrey Marsh, and she got some pushback from the so-called trans community, and then she pushed back against the pushback, And then today, I saw that on Odin's Men, I saw her put out a video where she's just crying and begging them to leave her alone. She says, "I'm very sorry." She does the whole apology tour, does the whole, Studying and Brave thing, because she was not only getting death threats, she was getting death threats about the times and locations where she would pick up her two little girls. And they also posted a picture of her. They found a picture of her without her hijab on. And I have some vague, you know, theoretical understanding that that would have been painful. But when she mentioned that there was pictures of her on the internet without her hijab on, she was about to melt. But the reason I bring all this up is these people, she said something against this guy who is without a doubt the creepiest guy ever, and who has started his own Patreon group for um, for teenagers to talk to him instead of their parents. I can help you. I can help you if you're not getting the love you want. I'll be your family. I'll be your family. Um, so so anyway, these people broke her, and I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, man, I just got out of this. I just spent the last 5 months with this kind of fear, right? This kind of I'm so afraid now I have to shut up. I remember what that leads me to. Um, I talked with one of the top producing guys over there. Um, he's not the guy with the neck beard. He's the guy with the super long face and a Joker smile, right? It's he's freaking horrifying. He's horrifying guy. And he's set up a Patreon to talk to teenagers about trends and sex and all the rest of the stuff. And he's on this crusade to get these kids. You don't do a full break. Don't talk to your family. I'll be your family. Okay. But they intimidated this poor woman who you would have thought would have had some protection being a Muslim female on the grievance ladder, but nothing trumps the this guy. Yeah. Uh, G says it's like the Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lamb would be if Bill was really insane. He is a he is a he is a very 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 off-putting dude, and he's an evil dude. And the people that followed him, not just trans activists, a bunch of left wingers. The poor Muslim woman is saying, "I'm sorry, please just leave me alone. I just leave my kids alone. I apologize. I'm sorry." Um, and and they intimidated her into silence. And most of the intimidation came from non-trans liberals saying, "See, you shouldn't have opened your mouth. Shouldn't have opened your mouth. It was none of your business. You have no right to talk about trans people because you're not trans." And that argument, you have no right to talk about the military because you're not in the military. You have no right to talk about black issues because you're not black. This whole thing, right? This whole thing. Um, and I remember listening to this. I saw this today on Odin's Men. This one, 24-year-old liberal chick saying, "No, you shouldn't have opened your mouth. You have no business talking about trans people." And I'm thinking, are you a trans man? Because you're talking about them. And I'm just watching this, and I'm just thinking, you guys want to make death threats, come armed. And then I realized that's not something you can say in California. That's something you can say in Texas. And and that is a major, probably the major motivator to get out of here, is just to take the gloves off in fighting these people. Um, so so there's that. Um, listening to Bill, I wish he understood why the student who wrote in the response to an exam question The less said about the Emperor Nero, the better, was offering good advice. Don't live so long in the darkness, Bill. Thank you, Edward. Not 100% sure what that means exactly. Hey, Lord Bios, how are you? Um, anyway, I talked about this documentary I'd seen called Died Suddenly. And the guys that made that are now in hiding. Um, and somebody sent me a link to a documentary they did before that called The Greatest Reset. And that thing scared the living daylights out of me. It really did. And one of the themes of um, that incredible documentary, unbelievable documentary, is is the metaphysical aspect to this. So, you know, this is I don't want to open up a super big can of worms here, but the way it was portrayed is it's portrayed as existential evil, and I am rapidly 100% convinced that this is the case. Um, yeah. Thank you for that, Steve. Don't spend too much time in the darkness. Thank you for the translation. Yes, I got it. Um, so this thing is called The Greatest Reset, and it's on Odyssey, which is another free speech platform. Um, this thing is horrifying, and the thing that's most horrifying about it is of the 20 people that they interviewed, 3 or 4 of them died in the time took them to do the post production. This thing was made in 2022. Uh, you're looking at these people who've been commenting during the film here, and then at the end is 1967, 1921, 2021, and you're thinking, okay. And most of those people in that video had the same attitude I have about this, which is, all right, I'm not backing down on this. Um, you just have to face yourself at the end of the day, and I'm just not backing down. So um, you really have to look at all of this stuff. Um, Blake says, "Have you ever looked into the Kuwait hoax?" I've not. Gulf of Tonkin incident. I wrote an entire episode of the Cold War about Gulf of Tonkin. A Qatari Turkey pipeline. Nope. Operation Northwoods proposals. Nope. But it's called The Greatest Reset, and it is just the opening credits are amazing. These are the guys that died suddenly. This came out before that, and it's a magnificently made documentary on top of it. It's just superbly made. So I saw the reason I put these two things together is watching this Muslim woman in tears begging these people to leave her alone and apologizing to this pervert and creep. I can't blame her. In fact, I don't blame her. But there is a level of what's the word I'm looking for? Malice, maybe. Malice. Um, Martin Vorbort for a 9.99 super chat. Waiting on my refill too. This is BS. Not sure what that's in reference to, Martin. If you'd like to clarify that, I'd be willing to look about that too. So anyway, they talked about was it something 201 and a bunch of these precursors. By the way, here's something interesting. My brain is kind of pudding still. In the comment section, it'll show up in about 7-8 seconds. What was the name of the experiment that they did where they told the subjects that it was a learning thing, but where they actually applied electrical shock to the subjects to see how far they would go? That's the something experiment. It's very famous. It's about compliance, and and that sort of thing. Um, Thank you. The Milgram experiment, Infidel 42 wins race. So they talk about the Milgram experiment in this. And for those of you not familiar with the Milgram experiment, it's one of the most um, shocking and interesting and illuminating psychological experiments ever. So basically, what they did was they put an ad in the paper saying, um, we're going to pay you to help us. It's a learning. So it's a new form of learning thing. So what we're going to want you to do is help us determine the effectiveness of this new style of learning. So they got a very, very, very broad spectrum of the population. And they were told by a guy in a white lab coat that this test involved they would get to talk to a guy over a microphone, and every time he got an answer wrong, they'd give him an electrical shock. And every time they gave him an electrical shock and he missed one, the next one would be higher and then higher and then higher. Now, on the other end of it is an actor. So he would, get a believable number of these things wrong. And these people would administer like 100-volt shock. Ow! And then they give him, 250, ow! And then they give him, 350, ow, ow, let me out. This guy's screaming, let me out. And it became known to these people. They made it known to the people who were just, they didn't realize they were the subjects. They made it known to them that the next level up, let's say it was 450 volts, was potentially fatal, right? Potentially fatal. And pretty much every single person there objected. But when a guy in a lab coat said, this is the experiment, we must continue. Yeah, but this guy's, we must continue, this is the experiment. Well, I don't want to be responsible for I accept full responsibility. And so the number is what percentage of people delivered what they knew to be a potentially fatal electrical dose because a guy in a white lab coat tells him to. They can hear the person suffering, they can hear them screaming, they can hear them talking about how they want to get out. And the number of people that went all the way to 11 was something like 65%, 68%, something like that. And I saw this, I'd heard this before, but I saw this. And then, wow, that's interesting. Dave Big Booty said, when they repeated that experiment around the world, they found that Americans were the least obedient people in the world. The Germans went to 85%. Isn't that interesting? So, Martin, are you talking about Adderall? Like I said, this is BS. You want the Adderall show? Is that what I understand here from these super chats here? And when I saw this experiment, they were saying, Amy Thompson says it was probably the lab coat. Yes, it is the lab coat. And in this documentary, they talk about the reason they put it in the documentary was because of authoritarianism. And then I realized something I hadn't realized before, and that is that the people who are still wearing masks, who think they're the good people, they're still wearing the masks because a guy in a white lab coat told them to wear the masks. And that means that all of these people you see who are still wearing masks are the people that would have administered the fatal shot, the fatal dose, right? They are the ones who are complying with the white lab coat, even though they think they're the good people and that they're wearing the mask. And it's just the savage Trump supporters who, don't give a damn about people. They're the ones who are doing what the guy in the lab coat said. So they're the it. Okay, so no, the shortage of Adderall. Some of us needed to have quality of life. Yeah, I needed it too. I'm happy to talk about that for a bit. So I did a segment called Adderall and Me, right when I was in the final 2-3 week run on this thing, when I really needed to churn out script. I was taking 20 milligrams of Adderall a day, or maybe 30, another 10 in the late afternoon, because I was falling asleep in the day. Didn't matter how much sleep I got. I'd fall asleep at 2 in the afternoon with a room full of producers behind me at an edit bay. it just suddenly wasn't there anymore. And the segment I did was to say, well, it's not just Adderall. It's like, what happens if insulin's not available anymore? Um, One of the things that they point out in this uh, biggest reset thing is that after Blake Jamison says, I don't need Adderall. Thank you, Blake. That's I hadn't realized that. Good to know. Um, do you need Adderall? Just curious. But in this thing they were talking about this, they said, they were talking about hydroxychloroquine and how effective it was. And then, not something I knew, the factory, the pharmaceutical factory, number one manufacturer of Adderall, of oxychloroquine in the world, burned down. Weird. Um, Adderall is in no way comparable to insulin. Okay, Blake, what medication is? I agree. I'd rather go without Adderall and insulin, but you're kind of missing the point here. Oh, you do need insulin. Okay, so you told me I don't need Adderall, and if I told you you don't need insulin, what would your response to that be? Your response would be what you've already said, that Adderall and insulin are two different things. So says the guy who doesn't need the Adderall. Uh, the entire point is that that this kind of thing is alarming, right? Alarming. And if this is a widely prescribed drug, and for it to simply run out without any warning for months should really scare you if you have a drug that is more important to keeping you alive than Adderall. If you don't get your Adderall, you get clinically very depressed and tired and all the rest of it. But it is, I agree with you that Adderall is not as critical as insulin is, but you don't have any right to tell me I don't need Adderall. You know nothing about me. You know nothing about the Adderall. That's just a ridiculous thing to say. Um, so back to the super chat question. Uh, that is anybody who is dependent on medication for whatever reason should be alarmed about the fact um, that that month-long shortages of one of the most widely prescribed drugs in the nation just happened. That was the entire point of why I did the episode, right? I said that 4 times. Adderall is a recreational and supplementary drug. Blake, you say some really interesting things, but you also say some really stupid things. You strike me as the kind of guy who's got a lot of opinion about things, and some of the things you got opinions about, you're right about, and other ones that you got opinions about are just plain ridiculous. That is a stupid thing to say, and uh, and I wouldn't for a second presume to tell you that anything that you needed as in form of medication or anything else was stupid or recreational. It's just a dumb thing to say. So there's Martin again with another super chat. Yes, it's about the USA suddenly running out of essential medicine people need. Bill, I didn't mean it to be snarky. Apologize if it came off that way. No, it didn't come off that way at all. It's something to be worried about. It is a single point of failure in the pharmaceutical industry. And this should alarm you because it's not insulin or heart medication. But nevertheless, it is it's important. And it took me out for 10 days. But then again, who knows? Maybe I was just faking it or imagining it. DW says, I have ADHD and I can bear witness that for me, Adderall is pretty necessary if I want to earn a living. Yeah. You don't die without it. You just can't work. So anyway, uh, so enough about that. I'm going to try and keep this to the media stuff. So if you run out of Adderall, go get some methamphetamine, Bill, rather than your amphetamine. Yeah, what could go wrong with that, Eric? I mean, Blake. What could possibly go wrong with that? If the prescription amphetamine that I use, that's made by a laboratory and is prescribed in dosages by a doctor that's highly regulated. In fact, it's a controlled substance. And if I run out of that, then what I should do is drive out to Palmdale and start poking around underneath overpasses, and that'll solve the problem. So okay, okay, got it. We're moving on. Eric, did you say that you have is it in Facebook? I guess it would have to be. Uh, yeah, digital currency, all that stuff was in this greatest reset thing. I recommend it highly. Let me see what I got here. Where'd it go? Uh, yes, okay, so let's go to Facebook and see what Eric has waiting for us here. Man, I have so much catching up to do. I have so much stuff to post, it's just crazy. And we're refreshing the page here, so let's see what we got here. All right, there we go. View all comments. View all comments. Okay, it's quite a read, but Eric's a regular stalwart, so we will definitely go ahead and do this. Plus, he's a top fan. He's got a diamond next to his name. Hail Vectron, Citizen Whittle. Hail Vectron in Vectron's name. By Vectron's Golden Claw, may this statement, admittedly long, inspire many to a vital cause. Before I go another word, I just realized something also. Um, I was again in this documentary, The Greatest Reset. They had they Bill Gates is funding most of this dastardly stuff, and they showed some, like, kind of, it wasn't exactly hidden camera, but Gates younger when he's off, he's not aware he's being watched, he's doing this rocking stuff, and the people doing the interview said he sure looks like he's got Asperger's, and then they had a professional psychiatrist on the documentary, and the guy said no, he doesn't have Asperger's. There's no way he's got Asperger's. He may have just some tics that remind you of Asperger's, but he said Asperger's people are not Asperger's patients are victims. They're not Asperger's people are not going to take over the world. They said Gates is first he called him a psychopath, then he called him a sociopath. So those people who I said, and I would say that guys like Zuckerberg and so on were on the spectrum for Asperger's, my sincere apology. My genuinely sincere apology. That was armchair psychology on my part. They're sociopaths, and that's high functioning sociopaths. And so apologies to the Asperger's people out there. I never condemned them for Asperger's. I just said that's what they seem to have. But I think sociopath is much better. And the guy who mentioned it on that documentary made a good case for the diagnosis. All right, so back we go. This statement, admittedly long, inspire many to a vital cause. For here is the announcement I now proclaim, and I ask you to read it aloud in full prior to beginning your reply. Last month, upon receipt of a major yearly bonus from cashing in my excess vacation hours, I began my shareholders' quest to reconquer a once great castle of the right. For it is known, as our Glenn Beck has oft stated, Walt Disney was a Christian and conservative 'Tis our castle, Sir William, and like the elites of Rome, we opened the gates at midnight and walked away, letting the barbarians in to conquer. You've oft noted, dear William, how this sort of thing will happen again in time, that any replacement we create will eventually also be taken. Well, I think the the dynamic for that, and I've heard this many times, is anything that's not actively conservative will become progressive. Um, but what then? Do we peacefully repeat the pattern, building anew to let the left conquer as they will, or do we seek to reverse it? No, fair cousin, it's been clear to all who see, as shown by Elon the Great, that it is we ourselves who can conquer, as we have long neglected to do. So I'm calling all of us who read and hear this, be they so infuriated by our losses in the culture, to follow me in this cause. For I have purchased 4 shares worth of Disney stock, and on April 3rd, I fully intend to participate in the shareholder meeting and report here that Monday night on what progress may be made. And the more of us who are in each meeting, mind you, the sooner we can reconquer our fortress in the culture war. Now, there may be many who deem the left's conquest of Walt's castle irreparable, irrevocable, irredeemable, and who thus say, I shall ne'er look upon it again. I would not presume to plead for them to join my fight. So I think we have some verse here. Rather proclaim it, Sir William, through my host, that he which hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. We would not fight in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. That's practically Shakespearean here. But for the fewer men, the greater share of honor when our fortress is reconquered. But Eric, you say, what good will 4 shares do? To which I say, a small seed can begin to grow into something grand and wondrous. No one need fear how little a role they can play in this reconquest. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be ne'er so vile, his effort shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen of the right now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us to reconquer the castle of Walt. Well, that was extraordinarily Baroque, and I like guys that go for Baroque. Um, you know, um, yes, um, the I don't I don't know the details of it. I'm virtually positive that um, if you are a shareholder, you have a right to go to those meetings and speak, no matter how many shares you hold. Now, I don't know how many shareholders there will be at that meeting, but I'd be willing to bet you that there are going to be a lot of them, and so I wish you luck on this. I don't. I mean, it's a good idea, and if you do get a chance to speak, I suspect there will be a lot of shareholders there who are going to rise up in agreement with you on a lot of this stuff. Um, but the question is the Disney board beholden to the shareholders? I personally, I know they're supposed to be beholden to the shareholders, but I don't think they're beholden to anybody but China and BlackRock. Their financing comes from BlackRock. That's where virtually all of their stuff comes from. This is why, over the course of the last 15, 20, 30 years, we've seen this woke dynamic. If these people were beholden to their shareholders, then these corporations wouldn't do this kind of thing because it's known to be a catastrophe. And certainly if they did it once, they'd try to correct. But they keep doing it. Disney's the biggest offender because Disney's the most important player on this field. Disney owns a significant amount of um, media, significant amount. And if BlackRock and China are paying um, Disney to be the mouthpiece for their message, which certainly seems to be the case to me, then then I don't think that all of the stockholders together would be able to do anything about that. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. I hadn't heard of those two. Thank you, Roger. Roger Ramjet 59, maybe the coolest name in the history of the internet. So people are saying, do they have the majority of the shareholders? Here's my point, right? Um, let's say that they don't. Let's say that they hold 30% of the total shares in Disney, but for the sake of the argument, okay, just for the sake of the argument, let's just say that they own 30% of the shares, but the next biggest shareholder owns 7% of the shares, right? Legally, they should be listening to the shareholders, but there's nothing legal about what they're doing. They're doing what they're doing, and they are continuing to fail. The the fail is the issue. Um, they are they are there. At this point, it is crystal clear that not only is there no financial reason to do woke, there is catastrophe, financial catastrophe at the end of the woke rainbow. Everybody knows it, and people are not that stupid. The people that go down the woke road are not unaware of the financial consequences, which means that there is another reason for them doing that. And since money drives so much of this stuff, that means that they are making more money by doing this woke content than they would be if they were not doing the woke content. So let's just say that all of the non woke content, let's things like shareholders, right? Let's just say that that is above ground money. Okay. And if it were down to only the above ground money, then the market would have an effect. You've tried this, it's a catastrophe. Our stock shares have plummeted. They're half or less than half what we used to be. So, um, you know, fire the people that did this and try to get us back on track and try to rebuild that trust. So they fired Bob Chapek, and then they brought back Bob Iger, who was the guy who was the architect of it in the first place. Now, if you sit down and think about it, that is telling you that there are forces at play here that are not market forces. They're not even close to market forces. When, yeah, that's right. Sacred Order of Knightly Valor, again, thank you for the super chat. The catastrophe is the goal. Wreck capitalism and get rich doing it. Yes, exactly. That's it. So when you see, so here's what I'm trying to get to here. When you see an entertainment company or a franchise do something catastrophic that appears to be losing money because of politics, some people just make bad movies. But when you see a political statement like the Hershey's commercial or whatever, then you can be assured of the fact that by this point, they are making more money by doing that than the money that they lose. And when you've got the kind of resources that BlackRock has, look, I spent what 2 years wondering why the NFL went with this whole take anything. That's that's not their audience. They're doing the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. That appeals to liberals, and liberals are a bunch of dickless weenies. They don't watch football. They football frightens and confuses them. So they are not only not doing it for their audience, they are losing audience share by doing that, and they know it, right? They know it. So why did they do it? The only answer I could come up with is they do it because somebody is paying them more money to do this than what they were making without doing it. They're making more money somehow or somewhere. Now, if I'm China and I'm looking at the United States spending $600 billion a year for its defense budget, and I can buy the NFL for $2 billion or whatever, and not buy all of it, not even buy the teams, right? Buy the message. Just buy the 5 minutes of the pre-show. If I can kick in a couple $1 billion there to get to the point where Americans are watching a football game and seeing other Americans refusing to stand for the national anthem, then that's a big investment, right? They don't have to have our military. They just have to make sure our military is not going to fight. And you don't fight when you don't believe in what you're fighting in. So the quickest way to get rid of 11 American aircraft carrier strike groups is not to build enough weapons to sink 11 carrier groups. It's to is to put enough media out there so that the crews of those 11 strike groups don't want to fight anymore, or the politicians, or the country votes for politicians that are basically saying, no, just scrap them. Um, uh, yeah, it's so, and Eric is saying, buy shares. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that Blake says, I worked for a large oil company. They're actually looking for ways to waste and get rid of money in the most idiotic ways that not only did no good, but actually hurt the company. I believe that. I 100% believe that. Um, Look, this is probably more of a Stratosphere Lounge question, because this is a huge topic. Disney is important, but really, Blake here, kind of cutting to the chase here. It's not even, guys. Money is not money anymore, and it hasn't been money for a long time. Money hasn't been money since at the very latest 2008. Okay, money isn't money anymore. It's not. It, when 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 you um, when you buy a house, and let's say you get a mortgage for $400,000 to buy a house, to buy a garage in Los Angeles, um, what happens is, when Jeremy bought a house out here, he told me he had to sign the papers 42 times. He said, I counted 42 separate signatures on this thing. And so basically what happens is, when you sign a mortgage for $400,000, we think, what used to happen when money was actually money, the bank would write a check for $400,000 to the owner of the house. The bank would be down $400,000. You would pay the bank back. You would pay the $400,000 plus the interest, which means that the bank would make money, assuming that the bank was good at assessing risk, meaning who is likely to pay us back and who's not. That's what happens when you have real money. But that's not what happened when Jeremy bought a house. This is 10 years ago. When he bought a house, $400,000 appeared. Fiat, it just appeared. The bank didn't lose the money. The bank didn't go in and withdraw money from the bank. The bank had money appear. $400,000 appeared out of thin air to, to buy that house. So the bank is not out of the money. We just created it. And I know that sounds unbelievable, but it's actually, that's how it works. And when you owe 30 trillion plus dollars, I remember it was 20 trillion 4 or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, tops. There's, this, it's not money anymore. And when you look at things like the Greatest Reset, you realize that this is this is the play. This is the move. This is what the Great Reset means. This is why the World Economic Forum is there, right? Um, the the what's the why? Something like 8 or 9 or 10 years ago, almost, I saw a guy. I went to a small invitation speech at a hotel, convention room in a hotel, and it was a select audience. There may be 40, 50 people there. And this guy was a guy who was studying what Google was doing. This is again 10 years ago. What Google was doing with the search engines. And actually, looking back on it, it's actually quaint. But he was basically saying, listen, they don't have to censor you. All they have to do is make sure that when you search for something, it ends up on page 3 or later, because virtually everybody on a Google search goes through the first page. Something like 95 something percent of the Google searches are on the first page, and then some small percentage on the second. By the time you get to the third, it's microscopic. So they were saying they don't have to disappear you, they just have to put you far enough back in the search queue so that nobody finds you. And a bunch of people were asking questions afterwards. How do they do this? How do they get away with this? How do they do this? All these questions about it, and why isn't somebody doing something, or all of this stuff. And I kept hearing all these questions, and I said, I finally had my hand up, and I just said, this guy really had the goods on Google. And I said, what do they want? Well, they want to control information. No, no. Controlling information is how they get what they want. What do they want? What do they want? He wasn't able to answer that for me. And I don't even think he understood the question. What do they want? And they want America destroyed. And the reason they want America destroyed is because America has been the speed bump in the road of aristocracy. There have always been a very small select group of people who are ruthless and sociopaths. They're willing to kill as many people as they have to. I just spent 5 months with them. Um, and they'll kill whoever they have to stay in power. And for people like us who are human beings, we can't understand that. That's why they're as successful as they have been. It's virtually the amount of evidence you need to blackpill yourself to snap out of all of this stuff is overwhelming. You really need an overwhelming amount of evidence to finally get to the point when I say, well, this actually did happen, and that actually did happen. So even though I don't like it and can barely believe it, there are no that all the other possibilities have been eliminated. So what it's about is it's about aristocracy, and don't think that that means it's about you know titles of nobility or fancy clothes. It's about the fact that there is a strain, there's a genetic strain in the human genome of people who are missing something and also in possession of something. They're not just maniacal people, they're monomaniacal. They're megalomaniacal. This is what I said about Lenin. He wasn't just a megalomaniac, he was a monomaniac. He was not just had these goal of being able to tell the entire world what to do through socialist revolution. That's all he did with his life. He didn't get married, didn't have kids. I got married. He didn't have kids. He didn't have friends. He woke up thinking about the revolution, went to bed thinking about the revolution, and he did all of this stuff. Um, and and so what it is there's a small group of people who are willing to kill in order to have the power to tell other people what to do. And human beings cannot connect to that on either side of the equation. Can't connect to the idea that you'd be willing to kill anybody to do anything to enrich yourself. And secondly, can't connect to the idea of needing to tell other people what to do. It's it's not something we can understand. And I can't understand it, but I can observe it and know it's real. So that's what they want. Now, who is it there? Just saw something. Where'd it go? Maximilian Wilde said it's oligarchy, not aristocracy. Aristocracy, at least, is responsible to a king. Yes. But the reason I say aristocracy, it is obviously an oligarchy. It's a rule by a few. But the reason I went with aristocracy is because aristocracy gives you a clearer mental picture of what they want, right? What do they want? People say they want power over the world. Okay. Why do they want power over the world? What is the emotional payoff? What what drives people to become a Lenin and murder 20 million people? What causes them? What is it they want? And what I think they want is they want they need to be seen as not only different than but better than everybody. That's the genetic defect that these people have. They have to be above everybody. That's their mental illness. And and I had a lot of thought about this with Gavin Newsom. Um, why would Gavin Newsom want to be known as the mayor of arguably the most beautiful city in America that has so many drug needles and human feces on the street that there are apps to get around it? What could possibly be his motivation for that? And it took me a long time to come to grips with it. And the answer is he doesn't have to walk among the human waste, and you do. This is why America has been such a problem for these people, because America lets lets people make their own lives and succeed on their own. And so if you're Bill Gates, look, think about this, right? Um, I don't have any money essentially. I make money and money comes in, money goes out, but I don't have a huge savings account or anything like that, or a huge bank account. But we'll take Bill Gates as an example because he's behind a lot of this stuff. Um, Marisha says some people different motivations. Some have greed, some have fame, some have religious fervor, some have vengeance. And I'd argue it's all wrapped up in the same thing. It's the same dynamic. That'd be my point. Anyway, um, but here's what I think bothers them. Right, Bill Gates is clearly one of these people. He's a sociopath, and he needs to tell people what to do. That's all he gets out of life. He doesn't have human connections the way that we understand. He doesn't have friends. Um, so he needs to tell people what to do. And what bothers Bill Gates about America is Bill Gates has $100 billion somewhere in that vicinity. Doesn't matter, but somewhere, let's just say for the sake of the argument. And I don't, right? I'm a I was raised as a probably slightly upper middle class guy. My dad never made more than $44,000 a year. That was in the 50s and 60s. And so in America, let's compare. I consider myself to be more or less a regular guy. So let's compare my life with Bill Gates. Bill Gates has 100 billion times more money than I have. But he doesn't live 100 billion times better than I do. Bill Gates has a nicer car than I do, and he's got more nicer cars than I do, but I've got a nice car. Bill Gates has a bigger house than I do, but he's got air conditioning. I've got air conditioning. He's got central heating. I've got central heating. He has a large screen TV. He may have 50 of them. I've got a large screen TV too. The distance between me and Bill Gates is not 100 billion times, right? The difference between his bank account and mine is enormous. But in terms of him seeing how much better than me he is, there's not a lot there. We wear the same clothes. I have much better hair than he does. So, how does Bill Gates how does Bill Gates get the emotional driver that he needs of being better than somebody? He can't be better than he already is. He's got $100 billion, 106 billion. Okay, good. So, how does he get to be 106 billion times better than anybody? He cannot go any higher than he is. He's got a car and I've got a car, and we both have 300 horsepower in the car. So how does he show himself how much better than he is? He can't do better than he is now. The reason these guys have so much problem with America is because average Americans live so close to them that they can't stand it. And I know people are saying, well, how can you say that? Well, it's true. If Bill Gates gets hit by a bus and I get hit by a bus, we both get the same treatment. We both get in the same ambulance and go to the same hospital, get the same doctors. Who was it who got Dick Cheney's heart surgeon? Somebody got hit by a bus and so on. Um, so the point is he cannot get that much higher than where we are. And the only thing these people can do is push us down, right? They really genuinely want us in the mud. And if you think about everything that they're pushing, what does that mean? It means that Bill Gates gets to eat steak and I get to eat steak, but in the world Bill Gates wants to live in, Bill Gates gets to eat steak and I have to eat bugs. Bill Gates gets to travel by air and I have to travel by train or travel not at all. Bill Gates gets to do whatever he wants to, and I have all these limitations on me. Bill Gates owns everything. I own nothing, and I'm happy. That's the line they're trying to sell us, right? And and when he owns everything, he can continue to degrade the overall. And when I say Bill Gates, I'm talking about all of them. They are all determined to push down the middle class into poverty because their ability to lord it over poor people. Look, if nobody is flying, right? If an average, I just flew to Nashville for business. If the average American's not allowed to do that because the carbon emissions are going to kill the planet, then Bill Gates is an aristocrat. He gets to do things that I don't get to do. Now, somebody pointed out that he has 100 billion times more reach than I do, and that's true. He certainly has the ability to influence things more than I do, but that's not an emotional response. He doesn't get to see that, right? He doesn't get to see it. All the look, really, when you want to learn the answer to complex issues in life, just go right straight back to Monty Python, right? Look, Dennis, there's some lovely filth down here. How do you know he's not? How do you know he's the king? Because he doesn't have shit all over him. That's what they want. They want us in a state of not only dependency but a much lower standard of living, because otherwise, how do they get to show that they rule the world if we don't give a shit? You know, it doesn't matter to me how much money Bill Gates has. I live a really good life, and that bothers them enormously, enormously. And Roger Ramjet 59 says that's where our 2A rights really become a problem for them. Yes, exactly. Let me just get these two super chats. Spanky for $10 says gas money to evacuate California. God bless that beautiful state. It sure is a beautiful state, and it's doing its very best. And then Sacred Order of Knightly Valor, again, thank you for the super chat, says like well-dressed SS officers parading before starving camp victims. Yes, yes, exactly. That you can extrapolate that back to kings, right? A king just take the Middle Ages in England. A king lived a much better life than a peasant. So why did he have to wear all the gold clothes and stuff? Right? Why couldn't he just live better than everybody? Why did everything have to be made out of gold? Why? It's not for him. It's for other people to see how well he's doing. And we see this on a small scale all the time, right? I mean, on a real small scale, you've got middle class or upper middle class Americans who are buying, $40,000 watches. Listen, let's just be crystal clear on this, right? I have no problem whatsoever, none, with people spending their own money on what they want to spend it on. It just, that's fine. But the reason they spend $40,000 or more on a watch is because some people can say, oh, that's a $40,000 watch or a $400,000 watch, whatever the case may be, right? It's it's showing off, because what these people all have in common, and this is why I'm quite convinced that that Elon Musk is not one of these people. He's related to them, but I don't think he's one of them. If he had gone to Davos, I would have been heartbroken, but he didn't. Elon Musk has a lot of the same qualities that Bill Gates has. And I think there's a lot of disconnect from humanity that Elon Musk has as well. But Elon Musk has something to do, right? He's got he's got a he's got a hobby that these guys don't have. Elon Musk is not owned by telling people what to do. And the proof of that is he buys Twitter, and then instead of increasing the censorship, he essentially eliminates it. So he's kind of the mule. He's the joker in the pack of these billionaires, and I worry about him. I'm glad he's on and off the richest man in the world, because I suspect he's probably got pretty decent security. Oh, first time chat from Craighead says Elon Musk is from another planet. He is. He really is. And Marusha says Elon Musk is secure in a way that they're not. Yes, and I've said this before. The evidence that Elon Musk is different from them is the fact that he's got a sense of humor. He's got a sense of humor. Can you imagine Klaus Schwab laughing at anything? Or Bill Gates telling a self-deprecating joke? It's inconceivable. It's inconceivable. When Elon Musk has a vessel that's called "Of Course I Still Love You," or read the instructions or whatever, and when he puts a roadster on his Falcon Heavy with the top down and David Bowie playing, and then "Don't Panic" from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, he could have put the SpaceX logo there, right? He could have done any number of things. Could have put his own picture there, but he didn't. He has the ability to make fun of himself. And I saw something that was, like I said, was just remarkable. He was walking along with this guy. They were talking about some sort of way they're pressurizing the second stage. This was like, I think, some kind of YouTuber who may be one of the guys who Elon has selected to go on this translunar mission. And and they were talking about this, and he said, well, Elon, why don't you use that on the first stage? And I'm watching this happen in real time, and Elon says, well, it wouldn't work on the first stage because the first. I gotta, I gotta go, right? He doesn't. He. Anybody, anybody else that I can think of would have said, well, that can't be done because of this. And then realizing that it could be done, then you go inside and tell everybody, I've come up with this amazing idea. This is what we're going to do. Bow down and worship me. But he didn't do that. He said, that's a great idea. He turned to the guy whose idea it was, that's a great idea. That is, that is different. Um, and he's the most remarkable human on the planet. He would be, if it was just SpaceX, he'd be the most remarkable human on the planet. Look, I don't worship him and I don't give him a pass on everything. But like I said before, he may be, an evil billionaire, but he's our evil billionaire. Um, I watched him spend his last millions of dollars on the last Falcon 1 launch, which, if it had failed, would have been the end of SpaceX. I cannot possibly imagine Bill Gates ever going pot committed like that. Never. Inconceivable to me. And by the way, Bill Gates donates all this money to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's what funds all of these things, like the epidemic simulation that they did a year before the epidemic. Um, and so, wow, you think, I've heard this said, Bill Gates, wow, what a great billionaire. He's given billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars to charity. No, he's given tens of billions of dollars to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which means he gets a tax benefit for that. That's donation to a charity is a tax deduction. And then he tells the foundation what to go out and spend it on. That's what they do. Bill Gates has been to Epstein's Island, by the way, and so has Stephen Colbert, apparently. Stephen Colbert is featured in this Greatest Reset uh, video as one of the people that are pimping the whole global warming, Victrola narrative. He's selling it, and I hope he lives long enough to see what he's done. And I hope he got 5 pokes. Audio is low. I know it's been low all night. I got everything turned up. I don't want to get it distorted. I just have to take a look at it. So sorry about that. So anyway, Bill is not a good guy, and and then you see this thing, you start thinking, are we really going to go there with the Rothschilds? Are we really going to go there with uh, with the Freemasons and stuff? It's like, John, I can't turn it up. It's we've had this conversation before. I've got it at the limit of distortion. I don't know why it's not louder than it is. It is low, but I cannot turn it up, because if I do, I'm already getting distortion. It'll be distorted on the recording. So I will check it later. I'm getting a lot of red here, so there's something that I have to look at. And anyway, so that's that. I guess what I'll do is do the rest of the Facebook questions today, and then I'm going to. Oh, I remember. No, there's something actually I want to talk about, and I didn't get to it. And I think I'll probably wrap with this. So, again, apologies for the. Monk in Training says Gates was never good. No, I don't. Semper. Anyway, this is something that I do want to hear some feedback on. So I I finally finished with this thing. It's been owning me for 4 or 5 months, and it's hurt uh, in terms of membership numbers. And as I've said before, there was nothing I could do about it. Um, I had to finish this thing, and it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life by, I think, by an order of magnitude. So now my question is, and this is just a straight open question, and that is, now that I've got my life back and some time back, um, what what would you want to see if you're not a member? What would you want to see here that would make you think about becoming a member? Um, and for those of you that are members, what would make you see? What would you want to see to keep you doing that? So mostly to the people who aren't members or were members and dropped off. What would it take to get you back in terms of what you want to see? A lot of answers for the colonies here. Live conversations with members, that I can do. See, I'm going to write this down because checklists don't forget anything, and I do. So give me a second here. That is one of the things that I had thought about doing, and I actually can do. Okay, so hang on now. Let me get these things down here. So, because I'm serious about this, I just got back day before yesterday, and now I want to do this. So, hang on a second. Uh, so, obviously, we got the colonies. We got a call-in show. We have one-on-one with members. Yeah, big bad problems where we can see and hear each other. Firewalls are everywhere, obviously. More engagement with member posts. It would be nice to know that you're reading what we post. Okay. Yeah, that's. I read more than I read a lot more of them than you may think I read. But yes, I need to put some footprints down. Um, let's see. Yeah, Tappy 3, Jack, all that other stuff. Firewalls. Anybody interested in those? Don't be an idiot things that I was talking about. Identify how to become a member from Mary Nolan. Well, that's a huge insight, Mary. Thank you. I have become, like I said, had my hand tied for 4 or 5 months, but watching more space stuff, um, and MetaHuman, Unreal, all that other stuff. So we'll count all that as Stratosphere Studio stuff. Unreal. Okay. Um, Live streams on Rumble. I've given that some serious thought. So let me tell you what has affected my equation on this, and that is it JT? JC? I can't remember his name. Odin's Men. Um, no, Andrew, you're absolutely right. I'm going to start with that tomorrow. Rotate the host on right angle. That's a thought. Uh, Firewall shorts that's an interesting idea too. Will the DW project be available on BW? Argra, I talked about that at the beginning. I don't know yet. I'm doing my very, very best. Firewall shorts. Okay, so let me just pause for a second here. Okay. What? Look, I get some money from. I get maybe $1,000 a month from YouTube. In the grand scheme of things, it's not. Um, very significant. So there's no financial incentive for me to remain on YouTube. Here's the thing. Um, I've been watching Odin's Men and JT. Is it JT? Yeah, Jameson. So he got nuked on YouTube. I was wondering what was going to happen, but he got nuked. And I'm not in a position to hire anybody right now, I'm afraid. Uh, Nuked. And every single episode he's done since then, every single episode he's done since then, he says, I've been demonetized on YouTube. I've been nuked on YouTube. Join me on Rumble. Join me on Locals. And he pushes it and pushes it and pushes it and pushes it and pushes it. And I thought, it's a little bit unseemly. And then I thought, no, jackass, he's treating it like a business. Um, Thank you very much for that, AOC. Um, so, um, so I can do a call-in. One of the reasons I've never really thought about a call-in show before until it came up 2, 3 Stratosphere Lounges ago. But I'll tell you what has influenced me into the call-in show thing, and that's watching. I've watched 50 Kevin Samuels episodes, um, and you know, so that actually could be fun. Um, I am giving serious thought to something that's actually relatively simple, and that is I shoot the virtue signal over there in front of I got a flat screen TV there. I'm not happy with the lighting there. I can relight that. I think the lighting here is actually good. And when I did do Stratosphere Lounge over there for a while, um, a lot of people said they wanted to come back to this because it felt a little too impersonal over there. I bring that up because what I think I'm going to do, and I actually was hoping to get it done today. I think what I'm going to do, the Gorn has been very successful. A lot of people have commented on it. And I think I talked about this before. Uh, I'm going to get some more of these life-size cutouts and put them behind me. And I think that would be a pretty cool general purpose background for the live stuff, you know. And let's see. So KJ Drag One says I used to listen to Gavin McInnes before he got completely nuked, and the call-in portion always killed the show for me. I was there to hear him, not some random normal people who don't belong on the air. Yeah. So I think the thing with the call-in show is you would have to. It couldn't be the kind of thing where it couldn't be the kind of yes, we're on Twitch, we're streaming on Twitch right now, as a matter of fact. Um, it couldn't be the kind of thing where I'm getting into arguments with people for 10 minutes. One possibility is just take a question and that's it, right? But the thing about a call-in show is it does bring, different issues, and it does also bring, um, people who disagree. And I'm happy to have a conversation with people who disagree. Uh, we've never been, we have a technical budgetary problem with that is yet another engineering challenge for the guy who's very fortunate if he gets the right mic hooked up when we launch this thing. Monkey Training says, be mindful of red pill content like Kevin Samuels. A lot of these dudes are frauds. Watch Red Pill Examined, most interesting man in the world. Interesting. But yeah, so Marisha says, regarding call-in, Stepan Molyneux always pre-screen calls. We could do that on Discord with their staging system and have it be moderated in real time. I need to, it's one of the many things I need to do. I need to really watch some YouTube videos because I don't understand Discord. I really don't understand it. I used it a little bit back at the Star Citizen days, but I don't have any idea of um, its full power. So that would be something that's good to do. Antonio Cunningham says Rumble is not neutral. For one, they sided with Crowder, which killed my desire to come back. They also have Barnes. They're sadly becoming another Gab. What are Barnes? Um, the most radical stuff I've seen is on Odyssey. We upload all of our content to Rumble, and on our website we link to Rumble. We put it on YouTube, but we are not dependent on that. And there's something else too, right? I mean, I'm looking at these views, and these views now are falling to the point where it doesn't even make sense now, right? I'm looking at like an average view for somebody with no audience out there at all is 20, 30, 40,000 views. We're getting 3, 4,000 views for Right Angle. That's with 188,000 subscribers. I know a lot of that is algorithm stuff, but also telling me, it's time to do something different. Um, Monk and Training says, have you thought of a 96-hour weekend? It's not a bad idea. So I'm looking at a lot of content creators out there, guys like Odin and Pearl, Samuels, and I don't know I know I'm not doing what they're doing. And I don't know if, well, I have some experimental data, right? I mean, the last 4 firewalls that I did, none of them broke 30,000 views. I think KJ Drag 1 says, don't be an idiot, has fast track back to relevance potential. I kind of think so too. Yeah, Blake, I hear what you're saying there too. It's that's not for everybody. The bottom line is, whatever I do, I've got to do more stuff with basically this. That's just me in it, and I want to do a couple of these don't be an idiot things about. I also gave some thought to had this thought earlier today, like a kind of something like, I put all this hairspray. They just nuked me for days. Um, uh, I was actually thinking something along the lines of a, like a Gen Z rescue squad. More culture, less politics. Boy, I wish that were true. And I'm not saying it's not, but Marisha says, don't be an idiot, can be outsourced easily enough. You should focus on stuff that only you can do. I'm the only person that can do it. Don't be an idiot. I'm not saying it's what I should be doing. I'm saying I'm the only person that could do that. There are 10,000 videos out there on airplanes. And not one of them goes to the core issue, and that is, how does something that big and heavy stay in air? Also, is it locals? Somebody mentioned this to me quite a while ago. What there's a service where you get paid to like call on birthday parties and stuff. I know that that Jameson's constantly talking about joining them on locals, and I don't know what to do about that. Yeah, thank you for the Steve Whoop says your research is key. The research I did on this last thing was just unbelievable, and it'll show when you see it. Because I'm just getting squashed here now. Locals was set up by Dave Rubin. So what is Locals? what was the other one I was talking? Was it Locals that does that thing where you Cameo? That's it. Um, yeah. All right. Okay, so all of this stuff. Um, yeah, Bob Knife is saying we did a live show for episode 100. That was 250 episodes ago. Um, Fiery Waker says, "Did you learn anything new about the Red Terror from your recent search?" Yes, I did. I found the mic is actually a good mic and it was working before. I don't know why it's so low this time. I genuinely don't. I got everything here turned to 11 and it is definitely lower than it should be. Um, so one of the things I got to be careful of is, not trying to do like 11 things here at the same time. But I think one-on-one conversations with the members are popular. We did that briefly for a while. Um, uh, Colin shows a possibility. Um, Live stream public policy, bring the whole world to do it. Okay. I'm actually losing subs, I think. I was at 188,000 forever, or 189. Okay, got it, Clay, thank you. Um, all right. Let's see. Well, he said we can set up a locals account. One thing I do not want to do is have a parallel membership. I mean, we have the means to do that. And when I listened to this greatest reset thing, it really was. This is not even a media war anymore. I think this is a metaphysical battle. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. Um, so anyway, there's a bunch of great suggestions there. I wrote down 7 or 8 of them, and I also need to hustle a little more. I need to be doing Mike Rose show more often. Um, and then there's the whole history thing too. I don't know. Start talking positively about AI and then use it and its use in social media. That'll tickle their algorithm. Fire Waco, that's a damn good idea. If I mentioned how mathematically perfect AI is and just the structure of the algorithms, how graceful they are, and um, did I see Kaihu Kwan's acceptance speech? I did not. I don't even know who that is. Hmm. Oh, was that? I guess I missed the Oscars. When was that? I don't care. Was it yesterday? This would be the 5th year in a row where I did not know it was Oscar night and don't care. Oh, he was short round on Indiana Jones. Yeah, yeah. I just saw. Hey, look at that. He sure enough is. So apparently, he said something nice to Brandon Fraser. So I will. I'll look in on all of that. Okay. We need you to educate Chat GPT. I used Chat GPT actually briefly. Um, Oscars were last night. Well, how about that? I didn't even have the faintest knowledge of it, let alone the desire to see it. I just didn't know. That's a good sign, actually. That whole industry needs to go away. Um, okay, let me see what I got here. I'll try to do a couple more Facebook questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up because I feel my voice starting to go here. Uh, Charles Tomes has a question about the banking thing, which also I'm completely unaware of. I just saw that story an hour before I rolled this thing. Uh, that doesn't sound good. Um, Carl Lane says it's high time I bought a Stratoliner Fedora. Sounds kind of cool. Yep, they're cool looking, all right. I generally try to keep it to one affectation at a time for me. The skinny ties and that whole 50s thing was pretty cool, but they sure do look good. So I'll think about it. Um, so let me go back and see if I can shout out some of this Facebook stuff. Steve Young, you had two questions from Steve Young. Is the funding for movie and TV productions going to dry up as more woke endeavors go broke like California banks? Um, everything everything has been in motion for decades, and now things are happening very, very quickly. Started slowly, but it's happening quickly now. Um, the We just a second ago just finished talking about the fact that last night was Oscar night, and I simply did not know. Forget about not caring. I didn't know, and that was, for a theater major, that was a high point of the year for 2 decades for me. So Hollywood is done. The big question is, are the streaming services done? The meta problem here is that the internet has allowed anyone access, and because anyone has access, it has changed what people are expecting to see. The more you produce something on YouTube, the fewer people watch it because it looks artificial and phony. And I'm actually really beginning to get that now. Now I'm watching stuff on. It's all I watch is YouTube is content creation from regular people, and these freaking whatchamacallits. Um, so that whole angle is a little different and weird. Um, I think I feel like if I do the "Don't Be an Idiot" series, and I'm going to try them, I kind of think they need to be shot on an iPhone. Um, and uh, so the question is, the money, 3 or 4 orders of magnitude of money has fallen out of entertainment. What I mean by that is it's 3 or 4 orders of magnitude easier to get in the game now. I mean, I've got a computer here that I got in 2014. Works great for the editing, um, not for rendering and stuff, but I mean, you can edit feature films on this stuff, and 4K cameras now are, well, freaking iPhone is 4K camera. So you can get into the game for uh, honestly a percent, 1 or 2% of 1% of what it used to cost. So that's the good news, is that you can get into there. The bad news is that that the money is no longer all in one spot. The eyeballs are spread out so much, and people don't want to pay to see content. It's very difficult to get people to see content, um, especially for I mean, the internet is free and YouTube is free, and to get people to pay to see content is hard. Um, and here's one from AOC, and that is reaction videos. Does anybody have a? I'm just curious to know. Does anybody have a take on that? Because I see a lot of reaction videos, and the nice thing about a reaction video is it's relatively easy to do, right? I mean, I don't have to. And if that was a possibility, react to what? See, this is the thing. I see people getting 3, 4, 500,000 views for reacting to Kevin Samuels content. Um, So what would you react to? I'll tell you one thing about crowdsourcing, and that is this movie I keep talking about that I saw over the weekend, um, The Greatest Reset. That thing opened with executive producers, 60 names, producers, thousands of names. They were before the content. They were the head of the show, and I think that's really important. Um, Reaction videos are people are the worst. They feel like they aren't adding anything, just narcissistically adding their face to someone else's stuff. Yeah, I agree. Um, so the comments about the reaction videos are um, very, very few of them add anything, and that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But I'm a huge fan of Odin's Men, and that's nothing but reaction videos. Um, Ben's reaction videos to TikTok and stuff, I think, have done pretty well. Um, yeah, I'm not inclined to want to go down that road, at least not off the bat. Rodzilla with a super chat says, "Ask De La Wire to reach out and help you get on Tim Pool, Nick Ricita, the quartering. I've heard of the quartering. Patrick, Bet David, etc. to push your project, drive people to BW. I will be doing um, some promotional stuff for the Cold War and especially for Empire of Terror. Um, so I would, and like I said, one of the thoughts I had too was this kind of, rescue Gen Z kind of thing. I don't know how else to put it. It's like this would be for the 1% of 10% of Gen Zers who are beginning to realize that they've been lied to and they've been really stolen from. That they're way behind on a lot of things that they were entitled to, and they didn't ask to be raised this way. Um, it's I mean, that could be any number of different things. Hey, it's a first time chat from sorry, Dejara. Sometimes they have an original contribution. Don't count on it though. Criticism reviewing is a legit function. Yeah. Um, you know, actually, actually, back in the early days of Declaration Entertainment, early days when I first started doing firewalls and not this would be 2010. I did a series. I think I probably did 6 episodes of it called "Take a Movie to Work," and it was essentially a movie review. Um, and one of the um, one of the things I would like to do uh, is like if I were to do this kind of thing, I would like to talk about Crimson Tide, for example. Why that one 2 minute sequence of the simulation of the missile launch in Crimson Tide is not only two of the best minutes ever put on film, why it's so critical to the story. Now, there's a lot of people in that space already, um, but I'm part of me is worried about split and focus, and the other part of me is saying, well, you know, um, when you see these firewalls doing 11,000 views or 8,000 views or something, it's like something's going on. 188,000 subscribers, and something's got to change. I'm sure an algorithm is a part of this. Maybe it's a big part of this, but also a big part of it is uh, the um, the uh, the format has changed. People are looking for different stuff now. Um, let's see. Yeah. just trying to catch up here. Oh no. Oh, Sad Wings, I'm so sorry. I went through that a year ago, and uh, somebody's losing a pet. That's just, I don't, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me personally. And it means I lead a pretty sheltered life. Well, the first thing to do is to get some stuff out the door, uh, and I think probably the fastest thing I could do is a firewall that would. Right now, I just have to get back. Uh, I've got a lot of people who are still members who are like wondering what the hell happened to me. So that's probably the fastest way to get back to that. Um, and it may be temporary. I hope it's not. But given the amount of writing I had to do, I did 81,000 words. Uh, what that actually did for me was um, get me used to writing. Makes me. I want to start on this Frank Luke thing tonight. Um, Here's another question from Steve Young. There's Eric's thing. I think that's it. All right, I can at least live with myself. Oh, that's most relevant. Let me see what I got here. Okay. Okay, so we got one to go here in Facebook that I'm calling tonight. It's also from Steve Young. When the first exploration crew gets to the colonies, will an alpha male, a female, or, or, or female be able to resist setting themselves up as emperor? That's the whole dynamic of um, of the colonies. That's the whole reason I'm doing the show, is to take, let's just say, frontier values and put them in the future so people can get a bite of them. Um, I think clearly Western civilization is in a state of real decline. Uh, I don't know if it's terminal or not. I do know that the people who are trying to push us out of the space are failing badly. That's good. Hang on a second. Spanky for a super chat here. Looking up and debunking leftist talking points in the articles that they write is super popular right now. I would watch you do it, Bill. That's an interesting idea. Um, and then Marusha, if you're not too tired, GK and I want to go over important stuff with you after the stream, or else let us know a good time. How about uh, yeah, I can do it after the stream briefly. Let me just I got to upload some stuff and write an email. I am getting a little tired here. Um, uh, well, what's the primary problem? The primary problem is I need more members and I'm not getting enough views. The floor, the firewall floor for 6, 7 years was $400,000. 400,000 views would be the minimum that they would get. They were routinely pushing high six figures and relatively frequently getting into the millions of views. And that format hasn't changed, but the views have gone down continuously. So I don't know whether that's a question of the format becoming obsolete because it's too produced, or there's no question that some algorithm is at work here, but there's nothing I can do about that. I just have to try something different. Um, so uh, I don't want to do what other people are doing either. I don't know. Right now, the main thing is, um, let's see. Let's see. This is an interesting question from Eric. He says, "What was the ultimate?" Talking about George Washington, what inside him kept him from being king? That kind of conversation is the kind of stuff I think I could be good at. Um, I have to do something that can't be ignored. That's a great idea too. Uh, uh, and I also need to do some networking, right? I mean, I know Dan. I was working on NRA TV and Dan Bongino was a guest on the show a couple times. So I got to do some hustling, too. Um, yeah, the problem. I don't know if I have this debating lefties and stuff. I'd rather debate the lefty idea. I don't know if I have the skin to skin is thick enough to actually debate these people because I let them get me too angry. Um, yes, Rodzilla says, look, Daily Wire is going to. We were supposed to release the Cold War 6 weeks ago, and we didn't. They didn't because um, the marketing wasn't in place, and that means things. Because I called him, I said, hey, "Can I help with this? Could I? I'll tell you who I want to do. I want to do Rogan, um, and I have zero Facebook footprint these days. Well, yeah, that's a lot of time. Uh, all right. Well, that's all great, and thank you, P7, for that. Get a bit hot. Yeah. See, history content is that's a big deal too. Um, I also don't know if it was a wise idea to split a second channel called Stratosphere Studios. Um, and as I've said before, during the last 3 weeks, 3 months of indentured servitude, uh, I finished Dias for Dungeon, and then 2 days later, I had to take um, the terror thing um, and work with that. Hmm. All right. Well, obviously, I'm beginning to get a little foggy here. There is a sweet spot in here somewhere. I would really like to do some kind of commentary through Unreal Engine. I would really like to do that. And by the way, of all the things that I've seen, one of the things that I like the most, really just could really like the most, I thought was just great content, not just that I liked it, I just thought it was great. And that was I've forgotten his name now, the guy who does the voice impressions. And when he had Gandalf and the whole cast of Lord of the Rings reviewing um, Rings of Power with the deep fake, I thought that was freaking fantastic. I just loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Um, yeah. Anyway, I would like a little time to kind of come back from spending 4 months in the gulags, and but the main thing I have to do right now is just connect back to members, and do all that other stuff. All right, so maybe don't know if I got that last question from Steve Young here. It was manageable. Yes, sorry. When the first exploration crew gets to the colonies, will an alpha male or female be able to resist setting themselves up as emperor? I'm sorry, I lost that train of thought as usual. Let me just go out with that. Uh, this frontier values thing. The thing about look, the moral, um, the moral fiber of the country in the days between the revolution and up to the progressive era, let's say, um, that old West, I almost said Wild West, but that Western West, American West morality, I think it's peak morality, right? It's um, it's independent, but it's also interdependent. It's tough, and at the same time, it's virtuous. It's It's very close to the wolf, so there's very little BS in the Old West. Uh, and when there was BS, those guys usually traveled around in a painted wagon that said, "Hey, I'm BS." You know, uh, nobody listened to what actors had to say for political insights. Uh, I a couple of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of like the colonies, in terms of ethical issues. Um, one of them is what do you do if you're on a planet or something and you have um, pest animals, nuisance animals, right? Uh, I remember, did I see Razorfist's video on Lincoln? Yes, I did. I saw it and I took it apart in my mind, and I might get to that eventually, among the many other things that I need to get to. Um, but um, I remember, I remember when I got the AR-15 before the boating accident. I remember look, I'm not a hunter. I got nothing against hunters at all. Nothing. My dad and my brother, both big hunters. I'm not one of these anti-hunting guys at all, at all. Um, one of the things that when you hear people saying it's so cruel, it's like, oh, they just shot this animal. Look at that. It's like, well, you're seeing the guy shoot the animal. You think that's cruel. Let me show you some videos of what happens to animals that die natural deaths when they're being eaten alive by wolves and stuff with their guts hanging out. I got nothing against them at all. But I remember thinking, I just don't think I could pull a trigger on an animal. I like animals. I like raccoons very much. I think they're great. Uh, and then I saw these wild hog videos in mostly in Texas, and I've seen every one of them. I don't know what it is. I know it's part of it is because those animals are invasive. They have no natural predators. They don't belong there. We're not going into their territory. They're coming into ours, and they're causing billions of dollars of damage. And they I don't know. I mean, I remember when I saw Babe when Babe came out, and I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm ever gonna have any pork chops again. I got over that. Um, but when I watch these thermal videos of this hog hunting stuff, I just want to shoot them all. I don't know how to explain it. There's something about them. Um, a lot of it, I think, is the sound these animals make, and the fact that and watching this is what I mentioned this before. I've only talked about this I think twice on the shows. When I see these thermal videos and I see them run, right when they start that dead on run, I I just want to put them down. And this is, I can feel it. This is in the DNA, right? This is a DNA reaction. It's not rational. It's not anything. It's just, I see them. I see there's like the, and when I see like hundreds of them in a field, I get a little crazy, because I know how geometric and exponential growth works. And I see 150 of these things out there, and 50 of them are these little piglets. And I think in 4 months, 5 months, these little piglets, half of them are going to be having another 10 piglets. And it's like, not good. So for some reason, it just doesn't affect me. I just plain, uh, when I watch these videos, virtually with maybe five exceptions, and I've seen all of them, I've seen hundreds of them. I see these guys out there, and there's 12, 15 hogs in a field, and they open up. There's two, three guys out there, and they get six, maybe seven. You have to get 70% of them to hold the line. And I see these things and I just say, no, I want, I don't want any of them to get away. I don't want any of them to get away. I want all of them. And I see these little piglets, they're just adorable up close. And I see them hopping and doing a little hippity hoppity thing. And I just want to pop them. I can't explain it. But the sound they make is, there's a reason why pigs have the reputation that they have. And anyway, uh, with the colonies thing, it's like, that's a like a problem. What if you've got um, what if you've got these animals out there, and and they're in there. I read it was actually it was Traveler. It was Traveler 2300. There was a planet in Traveler 2300 where there was a native species on the planet, and those animals were dangerous. They were killing children and that kind of thing, dangerous. And they said that the locals would just plain shoot them on sight. Little babies, they just stomp them with their boots, right? I thought, wow, that's an interesting um, that's an interesting dynamic. It's not really our planet. Oh, final thing. Here's a final thing. Okay, final thing. Um, yeah, pigs are not. They're not nice. Here's a final thing, and I'm just gonna kind of put this out here just to get some quick reactions. Then I'm calling it a night. Uh, this is a completely different subject. The more the more I see, and the deeper I go into this stuff with things like protein folding and all the rest of it, and especially now they've discovered that the Earth's got a core and it's got an inner core. Now they found out it's got an innermost core. It's 400 kilometers across or something like that. The dynamics of the Earth's core are exceedingly complex, and if that iron core is not spinning, we don't have a magnetic field, and if we don't have a magnetic field, we don't have life on this planet. Uh, it's not a question of the poles flipping. That's a byproduct of having a spinning metal core. Um, the formation of the Earth is looking so extraordinarily unlikely in terms of the way that some people called it Orpheus, that Mars-sized planet that hit Earth at pretty much the only angle it could to create the moon, and basically it knocked the crust of both of them off. So the moon is very much made out of the crust-like materials, which means Earth is heavier in iron than it should be otherwise. And you saw this thing on the planets on BBC, and it's like in the formation of the solar system, Jupiter was growing, and then Jupiter started getting closer to the sun. Jupiter ate the asteroids or whatever was in the asteroid belt. It ate that planet, and then Jupiter ate most of Mars. Mars would probably be a much bigger planet. It's just that Jupiter just came and sucked it all out. Would have done the same thing to Earth, except that Saturn formed, and Saturn started pulling Jupiter back out again. All of this stuff seems to me to be so unlikely. So here's the question, right? This is the science fiction question, just a simple science fiction question. I'm almost positive I know the answer to this. In fact, I do know the answer to this, but nevertheless, what if not only there's no intelligent life out there, because I'm committed to that. For, oh, look, we ran into some guys that look like us, only they're swarthier and they have the exact same tech level we do. What if that not only not intelligent life out there or technological life, what if there's no life at all? What if uh, what if there's no life at all? I used to think that was mathematically impossible, and then I saw something that basically said the chance of these proteins folding one fold is 10 to the 300th power. That's quite a unusual thing, and you watch these animations of molecular things, these DNA things, where these molecules are they're walking down this strand, and you see all this stuff, and it's like, man, it's I don't know. Just from a purely, yes, Spanky's got it right. Then humanity is the most precious thing in the universe. Yes, and what that does is it completely reinverts this Middle Ages view. We are the center of the universe. We are. We're the center of the universe. Everything revolves around us. Obviously, from a physics point of view, that's not true, but from the point of view that matters, could you write a science fiction? Could you write a science fiction series with interstellar travel where there was no life in the universe except for what you brought there? I just can't see how you would do it and make it interesting. I really can't. Um, Back to the pigs again. Pigs in science fiction, pigs, pigs in space. Uh, this is a little unpleasant. Yeah. Now, see, there is something that has never ever been done before. AOC says that we are the seed stock for the universe. Let's just say that it is a one-off fluke. If there is no life there, but plenty of well, there's no question that there are rocks orbiting other planets that life could live on, right? The question is, did it evolve there? Did it happen there? What if it didn't? What if it didn't? What if we were the only life in the universe? I used to think this, given the size of the universe, and still given the scale of the universe, even well, actually no, actually no. I saw a video on this, and they said if the chances of this happening are are 10 to the 300th power, then you run out of universe and you run out of time before you get to us. Now we're clearly here, so that's that. The assumption has always been if we're here, then it's just a question of how likely, so on. What if there's no life in the universe at all? Could you write a could you do a story about that? It would mean that you wouldn't have any animals, right? I mean, it seems like you'd be ditching so much cool stuff in terms of non-intelligent, non-technological races. I don't know, but there is something about that. Um, I didn't say it fits the grabby. Marisha says you didn't like the grabby aliens hypothesis. I don't remember saying I don't like it. Uh, I hadn't read it until you recommended it. Then I went and saw the video about it. Um, but what if that's the case? That would be some revolutionary science fiction. Oh, I was talking about pigs in space. So, so there's a lot of planets out there, and oxygen is a signature of biology, if I understand this correctly. That if you see oxygen in an atmosphere, that the only way for oxygen to get there is through biology. And so we see a lot of these planets with carbon dioxide atmosphere, and we think, well, how bad could that be? Carbon dioxide, Well, okay, so you can't breathe it. It'd be like being in a submarine or something, right? Or like when you hide underneath the covers for. Did anybody else do? I'm sure everybody else did that, right? When you're a little kid, you hide under the covers, right? And you keep breathing down there until you can't stand it anymore. You're just like, and then finally you pull the covers back and you get the fresh air, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. Um, but and when I say no life, that means no plant life either. So you see these carbon dioxide atmospheres, and it's like, okay, so if you go out in a carbon dioxide atmosphere, it's just it's like being underneath the the sheets, right? It's just stale, and it'll kill you, no question. Then I was looking at these some of these pig farming things, and the way uh, they say stun them. I don't think it's euthanizing them. Um, what they do with these pigs is they put them into these cages, and these cages are on a conveyor belt, and they dip them into carbon dioxide, and that's supposed to stun them so that they're not conscious when they get the bolt in the head. And when you see the pigs doing this, it ain't pretty. They don't just go to sleep. They start squealing, and they are really hurting. Then you find out that a couple of humans have done that. When the concentration of CO2 gets high enough, what happens is if you breathe it, it turns to carbolic acid, and your lungs just start burning from the inside out because of carbolic acid. And these pigs are not having a good time, man. There's 20, 30 seconds of them in absolute chew through steel bars agony. And uh, that changes the way I think about a carbon dioxide atmosphere, right? Oh, it's just carbon dioxide. What's the big deal? You know, I don't think. I don't think that. I think what you would lose would be more than make up for what you gain, but that might just be laziness. It might just be laziness. And the only way you could get around that, the only way you could get around that would be if the only way you could get around the I'm talking about dramatic problems now, not scientific problems. If you want to have alien creatures on alien planets and there is no life in the universe, then the only way you could do that would be for humans to genetically modify existing animals and turn them into animals that might be better suited for that. I just don't see any way to pull it off. Did I say carbonic? Yeah, I think you could probably just. Isn't there carbolic acid? Isn't that what it is? Huh. All right. Yeah, the planet of Dr. Moreau. Well said. All right, I'm obviously beginning to lose focus here, so um, I am. I'm going to wrap this baby up. It's 3 hours, nearly 2:47, something like that. Um, uh, yeah, you don't want to see pictures. This bloody hairspray. You don't want to see pictures of video of pigs going into those. They call them gondolas, getting dipped into high concentrations of CO2. Apparently, at lower concentrations, then you just kind of pass out. But these things they're just burning up from the inside. Hmm. Something to think about. Um, all right. Well, anyway, I know the show's been a little disoriented, but or dis something. You put a word after the dis. Been a lot of dis. Um, and thank you for that, Mr. Battis. Uh, so I've got a lot of work to do now to repair, mend some fences and start playing around with stuff to see what's going to work. I suspect what I'll probably do is punch out a firewall because that's the thing I think most likely to make members happy. And then I'll try to experiment with the don't be an idiot things. So I've got some good ideas about that. Actually, we'll see. Okay, I need something. I need something. But yeah, I gotta find something. And thank you all of you for the kind words. How was my visit to America? I liked America very much, um, and I'm looking forward to going back someday. Uh, anyway, this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep the lights on here and who've been unbelievably patient throughout this whole procedure. And for them, I am extremely grateful. Uh, and I just keep looking at the comments. I don't want to just keep on going, but I'm just going to have to basically thank you for that, KJ Dreg. Anyway, yeah, so thanks to all the members for sticking with us through all of this. I'm glad to be back, and now I am going to start making some progress. Honestly, it's starting to look like the mountains of California here with all this stuff. So that's it. Yeah, I've just run out of words. The word machines just stopped working. So I will see you guys on Thursday night for Stratosphere Lounge. And Natasha's back from Bali, which is nice. and although she's quite sick, she got some kind of bug. And Saturday, I am going to the Point Mugu Air Show because for 7 years I've been wanting to show Natasha what got me started on this whole thing, and got a email from my very good friend Gary Sinise, who's going to be playing there in the Lieutenant Dan band. But not only are they going to have the Blue Angels there, they're going to have the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds, and that is going to be something to see. She'll probably be bored, but she needs to hear that sound. You need to hear that sound, that freedom sound of those jets going by. There's nobody is immune to that. If that doesn't do something to you, then there's something wrong with it. Donnie says, hope Natasha didn't get the Rona. Me too, because we both got it in December of 21, and it was tough. Yeah, they almost never show together, but they're both there. So if anybody happens to be at Point Mugu Air Show on the 18th, I'll be there, be looking for you. And then Gary's going to be playing that night, so I'll wave at him. Hopefully he'll wave back. Okay, got a lot to do. So it's very, very, very good to be back, and it's great to see all of you guys again. And we'll see you Thursday for the Stress Free Lounge Live, and I will start putting some serious cogitation into these options and try to figure out what we can do, because these are all really good suggestions, and we got to do something. Okay, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you Thursday. And again, thanks to our members. And here we go.